2018 Land Rover Range Rover Velar car review. Land Rover would have been a late bloomer. It took 22 years following first Land Rover in 1948 with the brand to file for a second model line, the initial Range Rover. It took almost another 20 years for that car to achieve the United States, but sometime before then the mixture of V8 performance, rugged utility, and smart design had set the archetype for Europe market SUV in other places of the world. These days Range Rover has changed into a brand rolling around in its own right, and the origin of most of Jaguar Land Rover's profits. Which is why sign-ups of the clan keep showing up. First was the Range Rover Sport, then this baby Evoque, now the Velar, which splits the real difference. It sits for a passing fancy aluminum architecture that underpins the Jaguar F-Pace, but it really looks equally sleek, undeniable. That's reflected from the prices charged for this. But although Velar buyers will need to be moderately wealthy, that doesn't imply they won't be averse to spending less on running costs. Which is why you will see the option of a diesel engine inside the US. Precisely the same 180 horsepower 2.0-liter turbodiesel in the new Ingenium family that we've already observed in various Jaguar products. It's set to be sold with a modest $1,500 price premium in the 4-cylinder gasoline engine within the Velar's S, SE, and HSE grades. Although the 180 horsepower engine comes in Europe, it really is restricted to the bed's base Velar and Velar S, so our plush HSE example instead was packing a lot more powerful version on the same power plant. It adds an additional turbocharger to further improve output to 238 horsepower, thus, making this Velar considerably quicker. Its factory-claimed 6.8 seconds 0 to 60 mph time is 1.6 seconds under that quoted with the 180 horsepower version. On the basis of our knowledge about the 180 horsepower diesel once we tested the Jaguar's 20D, we could safely predict which the U.S.spec Velar diesel won't be described as a rocket ship. Torque in the town. Yet we could confirm the idea of a compression ignition Velar is not a bad one. The mix of high torque at low engine speeds works particularly well using the car's relaxed dynamic demeanor, and under everyday makes use of the diesel feels essentially as effortless as the brawnier gasoline siblings. While the sequentially turbocharged engine we sampled incorporates a higher peak of 368 lb-ft of torque, the single-turbo U.S.spec diesel still produces a totally respectable 317 lb-ft from just 1,500 revolutions per minute, far more than the normal turbocharged 2.0-liter gasoline 4-cylinder's 269 lb-ft and shy on the available supercharged 3.0-liter V6's 332 lb-ft. Pressed harder, the diesel bit raised its not enough spark plugs and emits some surprisingly noises when pushed to upper RPM. It's a great deal happier when kept in the broad mid-range than when being inspired to explore the top from the tachometer. It's possible the bottom output engine is going to be quieter, but it really will have to be worked harder to make similar acceleration. Fortunately, the common 8-speed automatic is specially adept at keeping the engine in the sweet spot, and theirs you should not extend beyond that in many passing maneuvers on Toulon roads. Apart on the occasional diesel vibration passing with the firewall, refinement is fantastic, with all the Velar's cabin feeling well insulated through the outside world. Our test car came fitted while using optional air springs, which give you a pillowy ride over larger bumps but maintain respectable body control of coarser undulations. It also affords a lowered access height along with an off-road mode that improves the body by 1.8 inches at low speeds, increasing obstacle clearance into a respectable 9.9 inches, although we doubt that lots of Velar owners are organizing a trip in the wilderness. The driving position is great, although below is normal within a Range Rover, plus the seats both are supportive and comfy. While the Velar clearly continues to be tuned for comfort in lieu of speed, the steering relays a decent amount of communication, and responses are eager enough for making the Velar feel reasonably enthusiastic when motivated to cope with a twisty road. If looks could thrill, we suspect that almost all Velar buyers will probably be more interested in how the car looks as opposed to the way it drives, especially to your theatrical touches, for example the flush door handles that motor themselves out in the door since the car is unlocked. The cabin employs high-quality materials within a striking design, but there are additionally some gimmicky touches. The air vents are about 50% the height of those generally in most cars, presumably dictated by design, and so they seem to work most of as well, blowing noisily because the climate control system fights to push air through them. The Touch Pro Duo program also looks greater than it works, while using two touchscreens duplicating some functions, being curiously reticent about others. There are two physical knobs whose functions are fluid and be determined by which menu you've set the viewer dashboard touchscreen to. The volume knob, mercifully, controls just the volume. Ditto the steering wheel control pads, this can change function based on the on-screen status from the digital gauge cluster. Meanwhile, in spite of the vast volume of real estate devoted towards the screens, their touch points are relatively tiny. Even many with the fonts used within the gauge cluster are small, and difficult to watch for a glance. In the spirit of sampling forbidden fruit, we also took a quick spin inside more powerful diesel V6 Velar, which relies on a 296 horsepower version from the 3.0-liter unit that powers TD6 versions from the Range Rover, including our now departed long-termer, Range Rover Sport, and Discovery. Although a far older engine architecture, dating back with a Safford joint venture within the early aughts, it delivers considerably more effortless thrust when pushed harder. And even though the V6 is usually noisy, the muscular hum celebrate sounds better versus the reedy four-cylinder. We should be sad it's not coming stateside. But, even four-cylinder guys, the Velar diesel appears like a good alternative for the slightly overstressed base gasoline engine. Whether that jibes together with the Velar's style-based emotional play remains in sight.